I'm back from Florida, and to say things didn't go as planned would be the perfect way to describe it. Things didn't go as planned. I went with the intent of catching Mondo bass, and that didn't happen. And I'm here to explain, one, why, and two, what happens when a tournament goes wrong? What do you do? How do you mentally react to that? How do you recover from that? How do you move on? And let's talk about all that. So let's start with some clips from Florida. Obviously, you'll get the over-the-shoulder GoPro action. Just a short little tidbit of information. I did catch fish. Don't get me wrong, I caught fish, but they just weren't anything significant. So yeah, let's get to the clips.
All right, here we go. 7 a.m. first cast. Well, number one, not a big one, but it's a start. It's a start. Number one. Number one.
Did not go as planned for either myself or for Jake, who I was there with. Things were weird in Florida. Let's say that the temperature matched what was happening here in Pennsylvania. So lows in the mid 30s and really high wind, made for pre-fishing, treacherous pre-fishing conditions. I couldn't get to some of the places that I wanted to go safely, so I just didn't check those spots. I ended up at a lake that I didn't anticipate fishing on Friday for practice, and actually found a pretty good bite that day, and was pretty confident that I could catch a limit there, and really kind of not necessarily make a run at the top of this, but at least get a decent limit, so that way I was somewhere in the hunt. And again, that didn't happen. Let's talk about why that didn't happen. There's a lot of factors, myself included in those factors. And then let's talk about how you move on from that. First, the factors that caused me not to do well in that tournament. One, myself, I spent too much time doing things that I thought would work, not just listening to what was working, what was working was a weightless Senko. And I picked up a different bait way too often. I should have just said, just keep throwing the Senko. It works. It's catching fish. Just keep doing it. I was picking up a lipless. I was picking up topwater. I was picking up a jig. It wasn't smart. I should have just stuck with a black Senko, which was catching all my fish, even from practice. And that's on me. That's a decision I made on tournament day to try and catch bigger fish because I wasn't catching anything bigger than 15 and a half, 16 inches, even in practice. So I was trying to get a bigger bite, but it just wasn't happening. So I should have stuck with the Senko. I should have stuck with what was working. I did everything that wasn't a Senko. So lesson learned there is just go with what works until you catch your limit and then try new things. Mistake number 2 was sticking in areas that weren't producing fish for too long. I think I hung out in the canals way too long for that day because as soon as I got out of the canals, I caught fish. I caught a fish. So I did only submit 2 fish for the day. But that second fish didn't come until, I don't know, 1:30, 2 o'clock. So the tournament was almost over by that point. So I didn't really have much to go on and I couldn't really cover that much water to be productive in that amount of time. So I spent too much time in my original area that wasn't being productive. So learning that I needed to move a little bit more quickly was probably something that I should have done sooner. I should have moved out of those canals a little bit earlier to try and get on some fish out on the main lake of where I was because the water temp was heating up and it was just, I don't know, too little too late. So definitely need to focus on how much time I'm spending in areas. This was the first tournament of the year. I'm shaking rust off, I'm shaking dust off because last year was weird. I didn't fish a ton of tournaments, so I was pretty rusty heading into this. My pre-fishing was off mentally. I didn't look at enough maps, especially the lake that I did end up. And then, I just kind of wung it. And usually I do decent doing that, but I think because I was so thrown off by the weather and things like that, mentally, I just didn't do the normal steps that I take when I pre-fish. So that's something as well. But none of these are real excuses. I'm not trying to make excuses for my poor performance. I know I did bad. I think these are lessons that you need to take into the next tournament to make sure you don't repeat them. And that's how you recover from a bad tournament. The biggest thing I do after a bad tournament is just assess my decision making. Was that decision a good one? Was it a mediocre one? Was it a bad one? Was it a terrible, awful, never again decision? And if you can rank those types of decisions that you made, you're not gonna either repeat those or you're going to repeat them depending on where you rank those. Because I've found, at least in my brain, that the more I repeat something, the more I either do it or don't do it. So if I'm telling myself, don't ever do that again, don't ever do that again, and it keeps happening, I'm more than likely enough gonna stop. If I tell myself enough that you should be doing this more, do this more, then I'm going to do it more. Trying to remember the good things that I've done in the past and repeat those steps. Trying to remember the bad things that I've done in the past and not do those things. So experience plays a large role in how you recover from a bad tournament. And that experience that I carry through all of my tournaments, more bad than good, I think that's all of us. We have more bad tournaments than good tournaments. And bad doesn't mean you came in last place. Bad doesn't mean you lost the biggest fish of your life. Bad just means that your decision making was off. You think you could have done better. It's how you assess it. It's not how the leaderboard assesses it. It's how you assess it. Because the thing is, you could catch 0 fish and in your head, you could have a good tournament because your decision making was good. You felt good about what you were trying to accomplish. You learned a lot about whatever body of water you were on. There's positives to take from every bad tournament. So it's all about how you assess that and how you judge what you've done on the water that day. For me, for Florida, was shaking that rust off, making sure that, my boat was prepped for the season. And it is. Fish finder's working, motor's working. My rods and my gear are where I want them to be for the season, or I know where I want to improve those things for the rest of the season. And I think all of those were goals that I wanted to accomplish, and I did that. I know I need a new jig rod, so that's happening. I know I need a new reel for chatterbaits, and that's happening now because of that trip. So that piece of everything that I did was really important to me for that trip. So again, it's assessing how your own benefits of a bad tournament are. But yeah, Florida was not a huge success like I had hoped, which is fine. We're on to the next one, which for me, the next one is a tournament in North Carolina with Carolina Kayak Anglers. I'm gonna go fish with my buddy Garrett and just kind of do a grassroots trail, a little less pressure, and we're gonna do a multi-lake kind of tournament down there. So that'll be fun. I'm gonna go spend the weekend in March and hopefully find some big girls up shallow. That would be fun. And yeah, I'll see you in my next video. It's not gonna be that one. There's gonna be a couple in between, but yeah, I'll see you in my next video. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. I don't care what you do. Tell your friends. But yeah, thanks.